Have you ever heard of Dunbar's number? It's a fascinating topic. I mean, truly fascinating. What Dunbar's number is it effectively postulates that the average human cannot form any kind of a meaningful emotional connection with anything more than about 150 people. And this conclusion was come to by studying the size of primate brains and then interacting with people to determine, roughly how many people they were able to form a relationship with. Now, there's been some dissension in the scientific community about what that number actually is. Is it 150? Well, for most people, apparently. Some people it's 300, some people it's 1,000, and I'm sure that there's some spectacular person out there with a steel trap, total recall brain, maybe can say that they have a personal relationship with 10,000 people. Maybe. I doubt it. I want to talk about the implications of Dunbar's number, how it protects you from being depressed at all times. And what I really hope is that this helps us to understand the complexity of society as a whole, who we are, how we work. Frighteningly enough, how unimportant a huge percentage of the world is to pretty much everyone, because it has to be. So Robin Dunbar was an anthropologist who in the 1990s came up with Dunbar's number. This is actually a topic that I learned about from reading a book by one of my favorite authors, a fiction book, where they talked about Dunbar's number and how it affects the human psyche, and that it's a good thing for the human psyche, and that it's also a bad thing for the world at large. So there's some dynamics that go into this that make it a truly fascinating subject to learn about. With Dunbar's number indicating that we can only have relationships with about 150 people, it's important that we learn to prioritize who we're willing to form those connections with. There's an old saying that says you're basically the average of the people, the 5 people that you're closest to. Well, I find that that's generally true. With Dunbar's number in mind, there are only so many people with which you can form any kind of meaningful emotional connection, and therefore it's very important that you prioritize who you're spending your time with, making sure that you're not using up some of those, some of that 150 number on people that aren't adding anything positive to your life. If you can only form 150 meaningful relationships, and there's 24 hours in a day, the reality of the situation is you need to prioritize the time that you're spending with those people with which you have some emotional connection. And failing to do so will just have you in a state of not feeling like you're particularly close to anyone. Dunbar's number also teaches you that it's important to recognize the power of no. If you're the social butterfly type, you have a lot of people who want to get your attention, a lot of people that want to talk to you. It's important for you to be able to say, no, I just don't have time to do that, and I'm not going to have time to do that. You have to prioritize where you're able to spend your time, because Dunbar's number teaches you not to spread yourself too thin, because you can only be close to so many people. And saying no is an okay thing to do. You should. So all of that said, the most important part about Dunbar's number is that it safeguards the human psyche. In the absence of Dunbar's number, if you felt like you could have a meaningful emotional connection to every single human being on the planet, you would constantly be in a state of overwhelming depression. And the reason that's the case is that Dunbar's number indicates that, by and large, we don't care about the majority of the people on the planet. We can have some empathy for them. We can look at a bad situation that happens somewhere halfway across the globe where an earthquake takes out a few thousand people or whatever that is, and we can say, wow, that's awful, and maybe throw a couple of dollars at it, or maybe even fly in to help those people, but you aren't forming an emotional connection with them. You don't know those people. And as a result of that, you can kind of subtract yourself psychologically from what those people are feeling. That's a positive thing for you to be able to do, to be able to say, wow, that's really awful, but then move about your day anyway, as if it didn't happen, because you don't have an emotional connection to those people. Now, there's a big difference, obviously, between something that happens in your own community and something that happens in Siberia. There may be something terrible that happens somewhere around the globe, and you might think, Boy, I'd really like to do something for those people. But you know what you don't do? You don't walk around in a constant state of distress and a constant state of depression because you're so worried about people that you just can't function throughout your day. And in the absence of Dunbar's number, you'd lose your mind all day, every day, because there's always something absolutely horrible happening somewhere in the world. I know a lot of you have been attempting to reach out to me. You want to talk about things. You want me to share a little bit more information with you. And I got to tell you, the reality of the situation for me is that even with this relatively low subscriber count that I currently have, slightly less than 2,000 people at the time that I'm recording this, I get a lot of emails and I get a lot of people reaching out and a lot of people that want to talk to me. And if you're feeling ignored, I wish you wouldn't. I have a full-time job. I have a wife. I have children still at home. I got a lot of responsibilities, and even making these videos is sometimes a little difficult for me to do, timeline-wise. If you feel like I'm ignoring you, I'm not, and I will get to you. And if you want to send me a reminder email or something, feel free. And that's for the time being. As this channel grows, I imagine that's going to be a little bit even more difficult to do. But I do love you, and I do respect you, and if I have to, I will protect you. And Dunbar's number for me is a little bit higher than the average person. I know a lot of people. I'm really glad you came to the channel, and subscribe. Like the video. And if you don't, then love you anyway.